member of the State Assembly Education Committee, and as such, I've been meeting with various schools, principals, parents, teachers in my district, and one of the issues that has come up to me during the time that I've been going around speaking to some of the preschool operators is this issue of community-based organizations that offer pre-K programs, and have done so for a very long time in our community. They are being, in some cases, threatened with closure because there's become an oversaturation of pre-Ks throughout the city, in particular in certain communities, and District 20 is one of those communities. The areas of Southwest Brooklyn are seeing that the city, under Mayor de Blasio, has spent millions of dollars in creating thousands of pre-K seats. And what's happening now is community-based organizations like the one that we're in here at our Savior Lutheran School are seeing enrollment being reduced. And they're finding it difficult to make payroll, they're finding it difficult to keep the lights on, the rent, and what's happening as a result is they're being threatened to potentially close. And so we're here to bring attention to this issue because it is one that's really important. First of all, these preschools have been around, they've been a part of our community for a very long time. Second, they employ our neighbors. They create jobs for the community, and they give parents a great place to put their children for pre-K programs. And the DOE programs are great too. And it's not about competing between DOE and the community-based programs, but it's about an oversaturation. We don't need to spend millions in taxpayer money to create more seats in the Department of Education pre-K centers when we have great community-based organizations that are contracting with the city to provide those services. So what we're seeing is a lot of money being wasted. I'll give you the poster child for this is the $6.5 million that the city spent on a building to fix it up on 85th Street and 5th Avenue for just 18 kids. $6.5 million. When we see preschools like this that are not getting nearly, actually half of the reimbursement that public school, the DOE pre-K centers are getting, there's a huge pay disparity when it comes to the teachers. And that's money that could have been used not only to fill those gaps, but to also provide seats for our special needs children. You cannot say that we have universal pre-K in our city if we have special needs children who are not being accommodated. And that is why I'm here today, and that's why I've been working with Alice Mulligan and other operators here to bring attention to an issue that is going to be detrimental at the end. And now I supported pre-K. I voted to fund pre-K. It is something that I think is important for our children. But at the same time, we need to be wise about how we're spending taxpayer money and that we're doing so to fulfill a need. When there's not a need, it's considered a waste of taxpayer money. And so some of the issues I can just run down briefly and I'll allow the operators to talk. As I said, in District 20 alone, recently there were 11 sites that have opened with a capacity of over 1,700 children. Okay. Now enrollment at these schools, and they'll talk a little bit about their personal experiences, has been reduced. They are routinely forced to accept a considerably lower cost per child than that of the DOE-run centers. As I mentioned, it's roughly half. $9,800 per pupil here in the public school DOE centers, $24,000 per pupil. They oftentimes have to deal with delayed payments from the city, which is resulting in staff not being paid on a timely basis. And they're already dealing with a pay disparity, right? The DOE centers, the teachers are roughly being paid $59K, where here, $42K on average. The contracts are often extended for years beyond the original agreement with no increase in funds for cost of living. And the DOE centers are taking children and teachers to fill their centers, leaving them in a very difficult situation. And through the PK for All initiative, expanded enrollment 250% in 4 years. Now these organizations were there to help fulfill that need, right? But now they're being hurt because there's the oversaturation. So they were there to do the right thing, to help the city fulfill its goal of pre-K for all. but now they're being hurt by it, and the city is not coming to the table in an appropriate way to deal with this issue. I brought this issue up during the state budget hearings when we had Chancellor Carranza come testify. He said he would meet with them. We're still waiting for that meeting. He did come and do a town hall in the district, in District 20, which we're very happy about, and did hear the concerns. But we really do need him to keep his word, and that he's going to personally meet with these pre-K providers and really hear from them what the situation is. So I want to introduce Alice Mulligan, who's been a great partner in this effort. She's leading the charge here in District 20, and she's building consensus from pre-Ks from around the city of New York. Alice, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Alice Mulligan, and I am the Executive Director of Our Savior Lutheran Preschool. Thank you all for coming here to support early education in New York City. I want to sincerely thank Assemblywoman Nicole Maliantakis for listening to our concerns and taking our issues directly to the Department of Education Chancellor Richard Carranza on the Assembly floor during his testimony on February 6th. Our Saviors has been serving the children and families of our neighborhood since 1969, and we have been in contract with the DOE to provide pre-K services for 20 years. We have been a school of choice for many families looking for quality care, as well as much needed before and after school programs. The DOE places Mayor de Blasio's nearly 2,000 pre-K for all sites in 4 types of settings: charter schools, district elementary schools, and pre-K centers, which are DOE buildings with DOE employees, and community-based organizations, CBOs like us. CBOs represent over 60% of pre-K sites, and until recently have been strong and successful partners with the DOE. Many CBOs are not-for-profits as well as women and minority-owned. Some are operated by churches and synagogues, and some are private schools and storefront daycares. Many of us have been providing early care in our communities for the better part of a half a century. We are your neighbors. For the first time in nearly a generation, our Saviors had not filled our available seats as of the crucial beds funding date on October 3rd. This date determines our funding for the entire school year. As a result, I was informed by the DOE that they would deduct over $24,000 from our annual award. A financial loss of this amount may have very little impact on a large multi-billion-dollar institution like the DOE, but is devastating to small centers like ours. Upon asking our DOE operations director how we were to successfully administer this program with such a deficit, he responded that I shouldn't complain, as most schools have it worse. I began to do some investigating into how this happened, and I've learned that our critical enrollment issue is being felt by CBOs citywide. I learned that the DOE has spent over $8 million constructing their own pre-K centers in close proximity to existing CBOs. 11 sites have opened here in District 20 alone, with a capacity of over 1,900 children. I was astonished to learn that many of these buildings have low enrollment as well, leading to empty seats in classrooms. This vast expansion was not shared with us, even as contracts were being initiated or renewed. This lack of transparency impedes our ability to make sound decisions for our organizations. The unfortunate result of this excessive expansion is empty seats in classrooms in both DOE pre-K centers and CBOs, and a severe decrease in funding. The monetary loss that we are suffering will not only have a direct impact on the children that we are contractually obligated to educate and care for, but also on the greater community as businesses and religious institutions are in danger of closing. Along with other CBOs, we shared our concerns with Councilman Justin Brannan, who arranged for a meeting with the DOE. In November, we met with Deputy Chancellor Josh Wallach and the members of the expansion team in this same gymnasium. They heard our many concerns and fully acknowledged that mistakes were made in the overexpansion of pre-K. We asked that they correct this devastating misstep by relieving the overcrowding in our public schools and place kindergarten in those sites. We were told no. During a subsequent phone conference, they informed us that there is no plan to reduce pre-K seats going forward, nor limit further expansion of pre-K in District 20. and this includes in elementary schools. They acknowledge their egregious error, yet flagrantly refuse to correct it. Josh Wallach and the expansion team says this supports parent choice. It is unfortunate that parents have no choice when it comes to overcrowded classrooms for their children. The overcrowding in our public schools, especially in districts 20 and 24, is notorious and historical. Families routinely report back to us that kindergarten and early grade classrooms are overcrowded, understaffed, and developmentally inappropriate. Pre-K classrooms have 18 children with a teacher and a teacher assistant. Upon completion of pre-K, these same children are enrolled in kindergartens with well over 20 children and one teacher, and it only gets worse as the grades increase. Recent studies indicate that any gains experienced by pre-K students attending a high-quality program like we provide are greatly diminished when it's followed by overcrowded classrooms. There is no continuum. Throughout this winter, we attended many meetings with the DOE in preparation for the release of Mayor de Blasio's Birth to 5 services, which includes 3K. Along with directors throughout the city, we shared our many concerns. We were assured again and again by the DOE that reforms were being discussed to ensure our stability and provide us with much-needed equity. Disappointingly, with the recent release of this RFP, which details the mayor's newly expanded early childhood initiative, we now know that our concerns have been dismissed and any hope of equitable reforms and common sense planning are non-existent. Of note, the average cost per child, which has seen no increase in 7 years, will remain stagnant for another 8. The cost per child in a CBO is $11,000, and in a DOE-run school, that same child, over $24,000. No increase in salaries, which will continue to hinder our ability to retain the required qualified staff. On average, a fully qualified teacher in a CBO earns $44,000, yet her DOE counterpart with the same qualifications has a starting salary of $59,000. The DOE now strongly encourages us to provide health insurance and retirement plans, though they offer us no resources for these high costs. Though many teachers prefer to work in a CBO due to the high quality of our programs, we can no longer retain qualified staff due to the gross inequity of compensation. Under Mayor de Blasio and the Department of Education, there is no equal pay for equal work. Community-based organizations have always been the backbone of the early childhood community in New York City. When the DOE needed us as their partner, we provided. When the mayor needed us to help reach his goal of serving 70,000 children, we provided. Again and again, the DOE has come to us when they needed us, and now we are being dismissed and ignored as this monopoly of education suffocates us. Why must small businesses and religious institutions be the collateral damage of the mayor's signature initiative? Why must our teachers, teacher assistants, and support staff be expected to work longer hours for considerably less compensation and with no hope of any increase in salary for 8 years at a time? We are calling on this mayor to pull this devastating RFP and fix what is broken. We teach our children, put things in order before you begin a new project. Well, Mr. de Blasio, you've made a mess and it's time for cleanup. Move pre-K out of district schools and back to CBOs and utilize pre-K centers to alleviate the overcrowding in our schools. Thank you.
When it all started out with part-time pre-K program, now of course we have a full-time program. Currently, very large schools in my area and many CBOs. So schools that continue to expand pre-K seats. And what I wind up doing is just keeping one class, only because when we enroll kids, the DOE kind of lists them to our facility. Most of these kids are waitlisted for the schools. So when we have a parent orientation in August, parents are committed, they like the facility, they're committed to stay with us. And then comes September 6th or 7th, the school starts calling these students saying, we have a seat for you, come. And they aggressively call these parents to the point where parents feel obligated and they actually leave to go to schools. And then, ever since it has happened, we decided that it's better for us just to keep one class, and we know for sure we're gonna have the seats filled. Because in the first year that happened, we lost about 15 kids who went to school. And for a small facility like us, it's really difficult because we do have a huge waiting list, but because DOE does not allow us to recruit those students when the recruitment period is over, we can't promise anything to the parents. And what they do is that they wind up going to other CBOs and enrolling with them. So at this point, we only have one. The biggest problem is RFP that Alice identified is the cost per child, which is $1,100 a month. So basically, as Alice stated, the teacher's salary has been $50,000 if you're a certified teacher with a master's degree for the past 6 years. And when I called, I actually also called DOE and I said, I can't retain a teacher with the same salary for over 5 years because I actually have teachers who teach at a district school and they're constantly getting raises. So what am I supposed to do? And they told me, find a way. And I did. I cut my salary by $12,000 this year in order to allocate raises for my teachers and the teacher assistants that we have in a class, which I don't really think that was the only solution I had, but DOE was actually praised me for it. I spoke to somebody at the DOE. I explained to them that this budget, they said, you charity. I don't think this is the right way.
But you can't take it off on your taxes.
And now the URC that came out that is going to kick in 2020 offers exactly the same salary to a certified teacher. So what is the incentive for teachers to remain working at CBOs? They don't get, I do provide medical insurance to my teacher. We actually agreed to split half and half. She's paying half, I'm paying half. They're not unionized. There's no medical benefits. Whenever they take days off, I cover those days off, but they're coming out of my pocket because there's no budget left in my budget to pay for a substitute teacher. And my teacher just informed me that she's pregnant, so she will go on maternity leave. So now I have to come up with a way of how to retain her, pay her a salary, and also have a substitute teacher in the class. And I'm sure if I call the DOE, the only creative way would be not to pay myself anymore and just work for free and allocate my salary to accommodate the situation that I'm in now. And I don't think it's appropriate at all. I think that's it.
Hi, my name is Dominique St. Louis, and I'm Educational Director at Shalom Daycare. I've been working with this program for about 2 or 3 years now, and I've noticed that the teachers in the program do the same amount of work as the Department of Education teachers do. They work the same amount. To me, if you're doing the same amount of work, you should get the same amount of pay. You should be given the same amount of gratitude that all teachers across New York City, Department of Education, teachers do receive. This is not being done whatsoever, which is why I decided to come and speak on behalf of the teachers in our school and hopefully all the teachers over here. In our classroom, we are still required to follow the Eckhart's program or the class program, and of course, that costs money to keep the materials and all of the ideas that they have that go along with the Department of Education for universal pre-K. If we are not funded the proper way, it's hard for us to continue to equal out with the Eckharts and getting high scores and high grades. It's hard for us to sit there and have the children in our schools develop appropriately along the same lines as the other children in the Department of Education schools. Another area that hit me highly is our special needs area. We have the same amount of kids, if not the same amount of programs, but we still do not have the same amount of resources. It's very heartening for me to say, as a special educator myself, getting my master's in special education, to see that our children's needs are not being met because we don't have the teachers. Our teachers do not stay. Why? Because the pay is not the same. And we are either parents or teachers or have children in our families where we are all finding the common ground to hopefully have that same goal, to have our children reach the same developmental achievements of other children in our schools. Another reason why I decided to come here is even if we pay our teachers the same, the 45 or the 50, the bracket, for the salaries that are given to us, guess what? They cannot receive health insurance, even if the school does offer it to them, because of the cost of living in New York City has gone up. So to make sense of that part of it, it wouldn't make sense to say, okay, we're going to give you the same amount of money that we've been giving you the last 5 or 6 years, but guess what? Even if your mortgage is a little higher, starting to better for you. Another area that I noticed was that the requirements for keeping the teachers inside our school, they must have a master's degree, they must have at least 5 years experience, they must have done all of these programs or getting these certificates. None of the teachers want to stay with us with that amount of pay. And I understand, I agree, because I am a mom of one living in Long Island, and it's very difficult to maintain all of us. As a teacher, as an educator, as a professional, I would love to see the Department of Education understand that if you're teaching in a Department of Education school, or you're teaching in a privately funded school or religious organization, that if we're teaching the same requirements, the same work is being done, that we're spending our time and effort caring for our children, which is what we all want, then they should have the equal opportunity to get the same amount of pay, the same amount of benefits. We do not have a 401k plan. We do not have a pension plan. It's not fair, and I would hope that more people would like to speak out the same way that our children do. Thank you.
I'm the Deputy Director of the Head Start program of the agency. We have 4 centers in the program. We're part of the Early Learn program. Wasn't planning on speaking, however, why I felt it was important. I did not have consideration or think about the smaller daycare programs before I was invited to a meeting that Alice had in November. And it's just, we've been part of Early Learn for so many years. The agency's been in existence for over 50 years. It's one of the first Head Start programs since 1965. So I thought it was very important at this point that there's so many of us involved in the same exact situation. The difference being we are, our agency, other than administration, is part of the union. I will have to say I enforce very well all the time for our girls to fight with their union, because we suffer the same when it comes to salaries. We've lost over 50% of our teachers in the past 3 years to the Department of Education. One thing we had was longevity. We had the same teachers, the education directors for 20, 30 years in our program. We cannot maintain our teachers. And even though the love is there, the salary is not there. And it's been a struggle. We have, in our 4 centers, we have 5 integrated classrooms. Because of these 5 integrated classrooms, in the very beginning, when it started, we did very well. We collaborated with special education agencies, 4410 programs, and we had really great collaboration going. However, many of our children we've closed one of our integrated programs simply for the fact that it seems that through CPSC, they have been told, so it has been said, that we're going to fill up the public schools first. We've lost there. We have many of our children also not receiving their related services because the 4410 programs have been, and they have not had providers on speech therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and counselors. Yet we've had children brought into our program whose behaviors and disabilities are severe and very challenging, and we have been unable to accommodate them other than doing the best that we can do and putting some behavior plans in place. So the children are not getting service for them. And they have been told such as well. In the Head Start program, our children have to be income eligible because we provide services for low-income families. We provide services in mental health, nutrition, disabilities, and overall immigration, housing. because our parents have to be income eligible, that when we do get through the program through the Department of Education for our pre-K, there are some that we actually have to turn away, even if we get them because of that. So our agency has put in for a direct grant for the federal government because ACS will no longer be in this existence, and the early learning program has been now taken through the Department of Education for this coming year. So we kind of remain the same. However, there are many we have not been called yet for the direct grant, where other agencies have been called, which would mean that we would lose our Head Start funding. So we put in a process of 8 RFPs, because we have 4 centers. So we have the pre-K, birth through 5, and we're putting in for the Head Start portion of it, in order to make sure that we hold on to the Head Start philosophy and mission of working with families as a whole. At this point, the struggle being that if there is not 3K in our program, if there is not a Head Start picked up, if we are not picked up by the DOE Head Start, then our program is at risk of 27 classrooms not having services. So I am speaking because I thought it would be important for others to hear. We have our daycares and we have the CBOs, but when we hear about the early learn programs and being part of this ACS program, that we are suffering as much. And even though there has been a union, our salaries have remained the same. So we no longer are having our teachers. I have a center with half the amount of teaching staff. We have hired multiple subs without the great qualifications that our teachers had to maintain bodies so we can try to keep our children safe, where we're lowering the quality of our program by doing so as well. So I thank you very much. Here's work for everybody. Thank you, Maria.
Good morning. My name is Carolyn Capizzi, and I'm from Smart Start Early Childhood Center. Obviously, I have very similar problems to everybody on this panel, so I'll just tell you a little bit about my personal story. So Smart Start has been a partner with the Department of Education since 1999. One of my teachers is here today, who's been with me since we started, since 1999. And I'm here today to speak on her behalf and my entire staff's behalf. So Smart Start has a contract for 48 children every year. Since 1999, we have always filled every seat. And when we were doing part-time, that was actually 114 pre-K part-time students that we were providing care for. And every year we have always met that number until this year. And in September, we did have all of our seats filled, but again, by that October bids date, we were 6 children short. So our contract took over a $60,000 hit. So I spent a lot of time crying, a lot of time thinking I was going to fall off that high wire and land in the fires. I did, again, also speak to our contract team, and their suggestion is always be creative. I'm not sure how creativity comes into play here, or better yet, you know what to do. And I'm assuming that you know what to do means take it from your own salary. But we've been trudging along, managing and finding other ways to survive. And I do have a daycare portion of my program, and for years, unfortunately, that's what we've relied on when our pre-K funds weren't there to meet all of our budget needs. So I do think that moving forward, obviously, one of the important pieces is the pay parity. When they talk about teachers, I think it's really important that everybody understands that it's just not the lead teachers. There has been some movement in the direction for funding for lead teachers, but teachers includes the assistant teachers as well, and all the other support staff that we do have in the building that obviously play a big part in making our program run successfully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the media? Okay, thank you, everyone. And again, I'm glad that everyone's here to share their story. It has to be brought to the attention of the public. The Daily News wrote a very good piece a week ago. The New York Post also did a piece on the pay disparity. And I I'm putting this video all on Facebook, so I hope that you'll share that. Go to my page, Nicole Melia Times, and share that video with your networks, and let's get that message out there, because this is an issue that the city needs to make a priority and really needs to do something before the next enrollment, because these schools, there are going to be some that end up closing because it's becoming really a crisis situation. There's no need to use taxpayer money, and I got to tell you, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers and a moral one to these children to ensure that education dollars are being spent properly. The state gives New York City, in this last budget, $11 billion. And the idea that they have consultants that they've hired for the Renewal Schools program, which will now close after spending $750 million, by the way. They have consultants that they were paying at $1,400 a day, and then the DOE has the audacity to tell these operators that they need to take a pay cut, and that they can't pay their teachers what the teachers in the DOE centers are getting. Is just wrong. It's plain wrong, and we need to expose it. And I thank you all for coming today. I thank you for your pledge to go on Facebook and share this video with your networks. And let's continue to bring attention to this. I know there's a couple of publications here, particularly Brooklyn Eagle, the Home Reporter, the Brooklyn Spectator. So when those articles come up, we need you to share that information out there. And let's, we're going to have to do a letter writing campaign and be a little more aggressive during this calendar year to ensure that they pay attention to what is going on with these community-based organizations that have had a relationship, and a good one, with the Department of Education for a very long time. Thank you all.